Hey guys, Tbull here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Space Cadets, the new commanders in World of Warships Legends. We'll start right off with Shelley Beepley here. This one's a American cruiser commander. Now, first off, we can take a look at the base trait. I think the reduction of the risk catching fire is 10% when maxed, I believe. I haven't double checked those numbers, but that's what it looks like to me. Pretty decent. That's a pretty good reduction in fire starting chance. So if you're getting burned to death by cruisers a lot, like let's say you're a battleship player, you could potentially put old Beapley in the inspiration slot on your build and help you out there. But you know, if we're going to use this as a cruiser commander, I don't necessarily think that's that strong. So this isn't going to necessarily enhance. It's not going to hurt, but it's not necessarily a major draw for the ship build or the commander build itself. But what do we want to do with this thing now? American cruisers, you got light cruisers, you got heavy cruisers, and within both of those categories, you got a fair amount of diversity. The heavy cruisers, some of them have radars, some of them don't. Light cruisers, you got different caliber guns and different consumables. So you got a lot of different options. And if you've been keeping up with all the commanders, you got Scott Kincaid, you got Einstein, Baltimore, and Beapley now. So we got plenty of options. You can even throw our boy George Dewey in there if you so choose. Potentially, I wouldn't necessarily use him for anything except for riding the pine in the office, but that's my own opinion. Anyway, getting back to Beapley here. First thing we got to notice, no EOP here. Now, what's EOP? It's Norm, Scott, and Kincaid have this option. Great on American light cruisers, increases the penetration of these shells, the HE penetration. Lowers the raw damage, yes, but by enhancing the or the HE penetration, we'll be getting more raw damage throughout the game, and it cuts down the fire chance as well. But you know, when used in appropriate situations, i.e., on American light cruisers, your damage output should increase by using equilibrium of power. So the fact that Beapley doesn't have that on here, for me, precludes her from ever getting considered as a light cruiser commander. But as a heavy cruiser commander, I find it fairly intriguing. And I'd say actually, out of the three commanders, this is probably the most intriguing one for me. Number one, legendary. You can put this on here, you get an extra consumable. So that'll be important here in a moment. But if we're looking at it from the heavy cruiser perspective, traverse speed on Ingenious, glorious. The Pensacola, New Orleans, Baltimore, horrible tour traverse. So this immediately helps with that. Yes, you get the warning indicator telling you when you're targeted. Very valuable information for players of all skills to have. And splash damage helps protect your mod a little bit from mods from HE damage. So that one's kind of just an extra bonus. Not going to hurt anything. You can always put this on here, increasing the fire chance if you want. But especially if we're looking at it from heavy cruisers perspective, I would definitely go with Ingenious in all cases. Torps, American cruisers usually don't have them. You got out of the ships I play with any regularity, Marblehead, Flint, and Atlanta, I think, are the only ones I can think of. But for the most part, American cruisers don't have torps, so looking at cruiser speed and rudder shift time, very valuable for cruisers. Survivability, dodgeability, always helpful. Here, incoming fire dispersion. Now we get an extra warning indicator that's kind of superfluous when we got this up here, but increasing the incoming fire dispersion. And if you're looking at any cruisers with tier 6 and above, you'll have the concealment mod in slot 3 on the ships, so we get 2 boosts there. And the camo, assuming you put camo on the ship, you're going to be boosting the fire dispersion there. And I'm thinking putting Vine over here, and we'll just go ahead and do that right now for the 4th. So this is a similar philosophy to what I run on my Norm Scott currently, and I'm a believer in it. You can see over here we got the same perk here and Vine over here. And this is actually the same inspiration build I'm planning on putting on Beapley here. And we'll talk more about the build in a second. But if you consider 4 boosts to dispersion, that makes you a lot harder to hit. So this is kind of a build that I don't really see anyone else, you know, I'm sure other people are using it, but it doesn't seem like it gets that much recognition. I'm just telling you from my own experience, it's very strong. And, you know, I'm always looking for chances to kind of stack these incoming dispersion perks on top of each other. This one, very intriguing. Detectability. Now, functionally maxed, we're talking rank 16 to get it up to -8%. We would need a full 16.4 maxed commander. And event commanders, you always got to remember, they're the only way to get legendary levels is to devote blue commendations to them. So very expensive. I would never really consider maxing a event commander in terms of legendary until very, very, very late in the game, which I'm nowhere near approaching personally. But -6 detectability, well, that's very strong. That's a maxed 16.4 Makawa would have -6 on his detectability. So that's very, very good there. And keep in mind, I was talking about putting Makawa here. So we're basically double Makawa, double concealment here. And we get a twist and track-esque radio locator telling us the location of the nearest enemy. So my thing, what I'm envisioning with this build here, excellent concealment, hard to hit. And then we get the radio locator, kind of a destroyer hunter. Let's slap this guy on the Baltimore, the Wichita, these radar cruisers. And keep in mind, we get an extra radar, reload time reduced, and an extra radar with this thing. So the pieces are in place here for, kind of an anti-destroyer build. And I'm kind of intrigued to try this one out. And that will be part of my build schedule here once I update my list. So Shelley Beepley, I'm quite intrigued by. Tbull, Space Fishy guy. You can see I've already devoted some resources. Those of you that saw my Destroyer video, we reviewed the new Destroyer yesterday. Saw with Hellsinger, I was testing out this double reaction time buff. Basically what the reaction time is, torpedo reaction time. It's a calculation that you're using the stats in game to run some numbers on, and it's informing you how long the enemy player will have from the time the torpedoes first show up on their screen till the time they hit them or get to where their position is. How long of an interval is that? And the shorter the reaction time, the harder to dodge the torp. So here we got this cat, Azure Lane and Tago. Reduces the detectability of torps. That's one of the inputs of the reaction time formula. And here, torpedo speed. That's the other main input. So I tried both of these out there. The results were great. I got just shy of 200k damage in the tier 6 Udachi, whatever the heck that thing's called. Can't even remember. But I ran the numbers. I took a baseline I plugged in 1,000-meter detection on the torps, 60 knots in the water, and came up with the base reaction time. And then I applied just the Atago and just the Fishbowl in 2 separate scenarios. This one much more valuable for the reaction time, the Azure Lane Atago. So if you have Atago and the Fishman, and you're thinking, well, I want to enhance the torps in terms of reaction time, I just want to pick one. This one's far more valuable. I went from a 6.41 reaction time on my base numbers down to 5.13. So 1.4 second reduction here. Maxed, this is a -200 when maxed. And here we got a +4 knots in the water when maxed. That just brought it down from 6.41 to 6.01. So 0.4 reduction compared to 1.3 basically. So just from a reaction standpoint, Atago much more valuable. Here we have a kind of a 1-2 punch though. The speed helps with the reaction time, yes, but it also gets the torps to target faster, giving the enemy less time to randomly react. So, I'll probably put Bay back on here. This is my Japanese torpedo boat build, the Hellsinger. I'll probably put Bay back here, but this is an intriguing combo. And if you get someone stacking these together, those are nasty torps to deal with, and the proof is in the pudding. But over here, got kind of more of a standard Japanese. Oh, this is the Hellsinger. Over here, we got more of a standard torpedo boat build. So subsurface venture, extremely great. You get torpedo speed and reload time reduction. I would always use that over this, even though you get the reduction in the main guns. The torpedo speed, like we were talking about, is quite valuable. Here you get the options. Do I want just the detectability at -6 or -10? Taking a hit to the health. That's an option you can take. Here, no twist and track. So we don't have that radio locator. And that, for me, kind of torpedoes, pun, I guess, quasi-intended, torpedoes the attractiveness of this. Because I'm a major proponent of twist and track. It's very useful for zoning torps. It's useful for counter destroyers. and protecting yourself. And all these things are very important for destroyers. So the fact that I got a very viable build here, or even if I didn't have Hellsinger, you got a pretty good. Now I like to use Kurita as my Akizuki commander, tier 7 Japanese gunboat, but you could potentially use him and his twist and track as your main commander. So those of you that aren't as big of a believer in the twist and track as I am, you got your reload or your range. And here we got smoke, not necessarily that advisable because Japanese destroyers, usually you want to use the smoke just as a disengagement tool. You don't want to be sitting there. If you get spotted, you turn around, pop the smoke, break the line of sight, and then get the heck out of there. That's usually what you want to be using the smoke. So increasing the duration, not that valuable. Here's what I would normally use. Destroyer speed, very nice. But we get kind of an engine boost cycler here. Reduce the duration, yes, but reduce the reload time and get more charges. So interesting there. And here, of course, whenever you get something that will protect your engine or give you mobility when disabled engine and or rudder, you always want to use those because a dead in the water destroyer is a dead destroyer as a rule. So I would always use that whenever I have the option. So overall, not bad. Lack of twist and track, though, for me is problematic in my approach to these builds. And finally, we got John Luke Pickup. Very German-esque name. Now, I wanted to point this guy out here. Number one, it's talking about him going, taking like a trip up to Uranus or something like that, which I thought was interesting. These guys are space cadets after all. But check this out. Paragraph number 2. Horizon vessel was sucked into a black hole. So this guy, is all about, and it's talking about him seeing all these mind-blowing things in the black hole. And usually when we see black holes, we see plenty of mind-blowing play from our teammates. So this guy has experience with the blue team. That could be valuable. Now, I don't know if that actually factors into the build or not, but I thought that was semi-interesting here. But what do we got here? Base trait, decrease spotters, reload time. Now, those of you that watch my streams or pick up from my videos probably realize that usually I personally forget to use the spotter plane just because I don't know. For some reason, it just doesn't jive with how my brain functions. But if you're better at using the spotter plane than I am, this is actually a pretty decent base trait there. So not anything to scoff at. For me, it's just not really that personally valuable. Here we got Will to Rebuild, the most broken perk in the game. Those of you that like to suggest to wargaming ways to improve the game, my suggestion for you guys to pass along to them would be cap the HP that's recoverable at like 5,000 or something like that, because you get these guys using these Will rebuilds in conjunction with each other in divisions or even randoms that know how to use it. You can make your ships basically invincible at this point in time. So it's extremely ridiculous how Will rebuild is right now, but it exists. So if you got it, you might as well use it. But what are we going to do with this guy? Well, I'm looking here. What is this? This is the unique perk here. Fusillade. Improves your battleship's HE shell penetration and decrease the enhanced secondary targeting reload time. What is that? That's the consumable, the secondary consumable that was relatively recently introduced. And then you get extra charges as well. So the HE penetration should give you more raw damage. And I actually got a little clip. I tested this build out here that you see on the screen in an AI game earlier. I'll go ahead and put like 5 minutes of that up just so you can see how the secondaries are reacting. But I do want to point out, while this is intriguing, it's a bit of a handicap as well in some regards. Now here, Celiax is my traditional secondary build guy. Range, nice. And then double accuracy. You got groupings and dispersion on these secondaries. So these are, that's very valuable. And we're giving that up for this extra penetration here. So these are going to be a little bit more wonky. And you're going to get more damage due to the enhanced penetration when they actually hit. Now, keep in mind, Wargame did say they're going to buff the German secondaries, I believe, next update. So maybe that will counteract the loss to some extent that we're getting by giving up this porcupine. So again, I've traditionally used Celiax here and usually have this selected, but I'm thinking maybe if this new guy's this John guy is viable as kind of a Bismarck command, potentially that maybe I'll put this back on here and we can come up with something else for Celiacs to do, or maybe he'll just party and hang out with George Dewey in the office. That's also a possibility here. He's getting a little long in the tooth. But getting back to John and Luke pickup here, assuming it were, we got basically a secondary perk here. We got this secondary perk, no heals, which a lot of people prefer the heals over this, but I'm all in on the secondaries when I'm using them. But we got two secondary things here, and we got the dispersion here, which is very valuable. And keep in mind, the Bismarck's main gun accuracy was just buffs, so kind of a hybrid here. We don't have Brawler up here. We do have these two perks both up your chance of catching fire, which close range battleships, note to the people in the back, the Bismarck's not a long range sniper, the Tirpitz isn't a long range sniper. You want to get close as soon as you can safely do so. And with that positioning philosophy in mind, you don't usually want to increase your fire chance because that can become detrimental, especially if you get in these brawlers. So I just elect to go with the damage con cycler here, and then we'll continue to test this out. We'll see if this is any good. I'll probably put at least a couple more points so we can get Von Hipper here, and then I can use this Azure Lane Fusao guy here, which boosts the fire chance of these HE shells. So potentially, and I'm kind of going to keep my powder dry in this build until I see what the buffs to the German secondaries actually are. But if the accuracy is somehow enhanced and we can maintain this penetration boost here, well, this could be quite interesting then. So again, this one I'm kind of medium in terms of my interest. Fishy here, the inspiration's kind of interesting, but for me personally, just because I have Hellsinger, the Halloween commander, I like this build quite a bit. I don't see any reason to get rid of that. So for me personally, Fishy, not the most intriguing, but if you don't have, if you're looking at this compared to just Tanaka, where is it? Where's Tanaka? There he is. I mean, I'm not seeing that much of a difference here that warrants going out of my way to get the Fishy. But perhaps this base trait's intriguing enough to you that you're intrigued by that one. But again, Beapley over here, I think this gal, number one, she's got a flamethrower, which is kind of cool. And number two, I think the build is quite interesting. And you do have options with the build, but for me, the build that's kind of jumping out to me is Baltimore or potentially a Wichita anti-destroyer build. So out of the three, Beapley looks the most intriguing to me. But again, we'll stay tuned and see how the Germs do. So once again, I'm going to stop narrating here. But if you want to see the secondaries in action with this low-level Luke pickup build, stay tuned for that. That'll be coming next. But if you're enjoying this video, please hit the thumbs up. And if you're unsubscribed and you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing. It's nearly half my viewers aren't subscribed. And if you do subscribe, it actually signals to YouTube that people enjoy the channel and it helps them promote it. So I would appreciate it for anyone that does subscribe. Thank you guys for doing so. And if you got any questions or comments, let me know. I do want to hear anyone who's got experience with these guys. How are you using them? What ships are you using them on? Or if you don't add them yet, but you're targeting them, what are you envisioning in your mind? What do you want to be? What kind of builds are you going for in what situations? I'm interested in hearing that and the people that read the comments, the more group discussion we can have with these commander builds, the better, a resource this video becomes for everyone that's viewing it. So let me know down below and then stay tuned for the secondaries and we'll see y'all later. Peace.